Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Muslim Network TV Canada Today Youth Edition. This is your brother, Mohammed Maxwel Hassan, right here, right now with you. Now, for today's topic, something quite interesting. I know, mashallah, just recently there was the International Women's Day. For those who may not be aware, International Women's Day was on March 8th, and it's all about celebrating the accomplishments of women all over the world, regardless of culture, religion, what have you, just honoring and respecting our women. And so, to piggyback off of that and to really highlight and emphasize, mashallah, a pertinent topic for our, Muslim women today, it's all about sisters in sports. Mashallah, when it comes to sports and, you think about the Olympics, you think about all sorts of things, the NBA, the NHL, all sorts of stuff. All kinds of sports. A lot of it there may not be as much of an emphasis, or there may not be as much of a spotlight for our sisters. I mean, opportunities. Activity is for everyone. So now, here to talk and shed some light, particularly about sisters in sports, we got two very, very special guests. Masha, we got Sister Husnah Azmi. She is a 24-year-old and the fifth oldest of 9 children. I mean, mashallah, she is currently doing her master's in environmental science at Ryerson University. And Husna grew up playing and watching sports, especially hockey, with her 8 siblings and friends. Mashallah, quite a party there. She plays on a ball hockey team with her 5 sisters and recently started a program that works to give Muslim girls the opportunity to learn how to play hockey. Mashallah, Sister Husna, really awesome having you here, and really excited to hear your insights about this whole topic about sisters in sports. With us also here today, we got Sister Asiyah Azmi, and you can guess by the name, mashallah, that these two are definitely related. She's 28 years old and the eldest daughter in the family of 9 children. Again, folks, we're not talking about 6, 7, 8. We're talking, mashallah, 9 children. And she graduated from UFT, University of Toronto, in 2015 with an honors bachelor degree in Islamic studies and cultural studies. Currently, Asiyah works for a financing company and as a legal assistant for a law firm in Toronto. She has always enjoyed playing sports. Sister Asiyah has always enjoyed playing sports and has had the opportunity to help organize and run camps for Muslim girls, in which outdoor activities played a big part in all that. Along with her 5 sisters, mashallah, 5 sisters, Asiyah has recently set up a program that gives younger Muslim girls the opportunity to learn how to play hockey. Again, thank you so much, Sister Asiyah, for your time and for your willingness to stop by to really share your insights about this whole topic of sister and sports. Now, I always like to begin and shed light on our guests by saying, the story is how, like, why, the whole what got you into where you are today. And so, if I can take it to you, Sister Asiyah, what made you so involved? Like, what's your story with you in sports and hockey and your sibling? I mean, what's going on here, mashallah? I'm curious to know what's your angle on all of this.
Yeah, so basically, my dad is the main reason why all of us are so into sports. So he came to Canada in the 1960s, and when he was here, as an immigrant, it was pretty difficult for him to kind of relate to other people around him. So sports, particularly hockey, was one of those things that kind of made him feel like he connected. It allowed him to connect with the broader community. So growing up, that was it for us. So when we were little, we would play hockey, soccer, football, volleyball. So sports have always been like a really big part of our life growing up. So that was mainly the main force behind all of us getting really, really into it.
So, mashallah, so it ran in the family. So, Sister Hosna, do you have any other kind of piece to this puzzle? Like, what really got you into it? And mashallah, not just one, like your whole family got involved with this. So, where did the love of sports really, emerge?
Yeah, well, as Asya said, it started with our family, but all of us individually also like it too. We all are huge Leafs fans. We all watch a lot of sports, and also we started playing in leagues as well. So that's kind of helped us to grow our love for the sport. we started playing in 2012 in leagues, but before that, we were just playing on the street with our friends.
Okay, so you started small and you just slowly built yourself up. Mashallah, great, great. And again, Leafs fans. For those who aren't aware, like Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, the way all you gotta do is just say that name and it just evokes all sorts of emotions. So I mean, like you just look it up for yourself. That I mean, the Maple Leafs, it is what it is. But let me continue on with you, Sister Husna. Now the whole topic is about our sisters and sports. I know, mashallah, with your given your background and Sister Asiyah's background too, like your whole like you grew up with sports and it's something a huge part of your life. What have you noticed in terms of how other sisters, generally speaking, what are some observations that you may have noticed in terms of how sisters look at sports?
Well, the crowd that we surround ourselves with typically do like sports, but a lot of them don't really have the opportunity to start playing sports because there's not really spaces that are as accessible for Muslim women. Uh, there's a lot of like hockey fans, like the people that we know, but they just don't have the spaces, and there's not as much representation to give them that push to go and start playing sports.
I see. Now, all right. Now, how about you, Sister Asia? Do you share the same kind of idea, like, or other observations? Like generally speaking, when you say sisters in sports, what do you notice? What do you see? What are the trends that are happening in regards to this?
Yeah, so I agree with Husnah. So in terms of sports, there's a lot of stereotypes that Muslim women, particularly visible Muslim women, face when it comes to sports. Stereotypes from both within the community as well as from outside the community. So some of the stereotypes from outside of the community, like from the wider Canadian society, is they look at you participating in it and they're like, "What is this person doing here?" Like you really feel like an outsider sometimes because you don't they're not used to seeing that. And they also carry a lot of stereotypes of what a Muslim woman, so stereotypes of them being very submissive, are not very involved, are active. So those are kind of some of the stereotypes that do get carried by Muslim women. So that's one thing. And then on the other side, you're also dealing with stereotypes from within the Muslim community. So not only Muslims actually. So if you think about how people think of females in sports, like girls are not thought of like it's not the typical situation where if a girl's into sports, it's always a bit like, oh, but why is he into sports? Like it fashion, things like that are more typically understood as being what girls should be into.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. Just to further that, when we met, we actually had a chance to speak to Haley Wickenheiser, and she said herself that even she had pushback, and she's a Canadian like woman icon in sports. So she said amongst her family, like even though it's not a Muslim traditional family, she had a lot of pushback too.
I mean, out of curiosity, I mean, do you have like a story that you'd be open to sharing? Again, keeping everyone anonymous, but have you experienced that firsthand where there seems to be a pushback or there seems to be some sort of, glaring eyes, and although they may not say something or they did say something and it just really kind of left a sour taste? Have you experienced that in the whole sports world, like firsthand?
Yeah, we have. I think one that really stands out is that there's a woman that had been playing hockey for a long time, and she was super nice to us. She was really nice to us, but she even herself, um, became like a bit of a mentor and a coach to us. But she herself said when she first heard us speaking, she was really surprised at the way that we talked because we were talking like regularly, you know. So she thought like we were like talking as like arguing with each other and talking with like just aggressively to each other, which is how we normally talk to each other. And she was herself, even though she was very like you wouldn't really describe her as someone that was prejudiced or anything. She herself was surprised at the way that we were talking because she had that image of Muslim women being quiet and more reserved.
Huh, interesting. Okay. How about you, Sister Asia? Have you experienced anything like that too, or something different?
Um,
And
for us, particularly, one of the things that actually stands out is just in terms of when we used to play, we would have other players who are on the same team with us come up to us and be like, like tell us of things that they had heard about us playing. So at the beginning when we first started, we were not the best players. We were just learning, and it was a lot of fun, but we were losing pretty much every game. So as we got better, we noticed a bit of a stare back, because at this point now they're seeing you as actual competition. So now that you're actual competition, it became a bit more of a hostile environment. So we've had people basically we've had teammates tell us that when we play with them on the same team, they've noticed more aggression on the side of the other teams or things like that. So that has been something that we've definitely been dealing with in the last few years.
And they have kind of an image of you, like when you get a penalty, like when another player gets a penalty, they don't classify you or put you in like a category of someone that's aggressive. But with like we noticed that we're playing similar to any like competitive player, and they would categorize us as being aggressive, dirty players. It's just like a stereotype that is pretty pervasive.
But what's the root of that? Like in terms of this image, I mean, I know people would probably point to the media and they're just pointing to that and they're saying, oh, this is where where does this come from in terms of like people's perceptions on what our sisters are like, and especially put them in the sports world in that context. Where does this come from in your opinion?
So definitely the media, but also I think it mainly comes from just lack of exposure. So they don't deal with Muslim women in that environment. So there are a lot of Muslim girls that enjoy sports, that maybe they don't play competitively, but they do play they do enjoy it as well. But there's a lack of visibility of seeing that on a day-to-day level, or just as a regular thing that you would see. So when they do see it, it gets tied down with whatever. So you become we've noticed you become kind of like the spokesperson for Muslim women without even realizing that's what you're doing. That's what you become to these people.
Speaking of which, mashallah, that's a good point that you brought up, because maybe the role models, heroes. I know speaking on the men's side, just for a moment, like we were talking, I'm sure you're familiar with Khabib, yeah, like how he was, all over the place and everyone's just like rallying behind him. You have Mo Salah, like, I mean, there's a whole debate about the name and stuff, but regardless about how his influence and people they're looking up, and he's making a sajda on again, not a fiqh or any scholar here, like just a discussion, just highlighting the level of influence that he had, So on the sister side, is there someone that you could point? I know you mentioned there's a lack of it, but are there role models or people that you could point towards and say, hey, this one sister, she really pushed the envelope, really kind of broke barriers? Is there anyone like that maybe that people aren't aware of, but you two really take to heart and just use that as juice and inspiration?
In hockey, we don't really have anyone to look up to in terms of women, like Muslim women, but for someone that stands out to us that we're really a big fan of is Ibtihaj Muhammad. She's the Olympic fencer, and we look up to her.
Oh yeah, so how about you, Sister Asa? Do you have anyone in mind?
Yeah, so Ibtihaj Muhammad comes to mind too, just because as far as visible, like I said, there are Muslim women that do participate in sport, but you don't get to see they're not as visible as Ibtihaj Muhammad is. So for her, I remember we were really excited, and for her, and we follow her now, and we're always excited whenever something comes up for her. But yeah, there's as you can see, there's not a lot to choose from.
Well, hey, I mean that's it's good news and bad news. I mean, the good news is that you two could be, the shining stars, right? That means that the door is open to whoever walks through it. I mean, the bad news is that you don't have like a blueprint, but at the same time, this is a great opportunity, mashallah, for sisters to really, grab it, grab that opportunity. Now, I'm curious because, in the beginning of the introduction, we talked about how, you both started up a program for Muslim sisters and our young sisters to really get them involved in hockey and sports. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I know people, maybe they're watching, they're probably wondering what's all these acronyms that are beside your names. Could you tell us a little bit about it, either one? So maybe Sister Husna, then Sister Asiyah. What is it all about? How did that start? And maybe does it tie into the whole visibility factor that we've been talking about?
Okay, so that MWBHA stands for Muslim Women's Ball Hockey Association. So we started that because we've noticed there was a lot of Muslim girls that we've come across have expressed interest in starting hockey, but there's not really a lot of spaces that, as I said before, that's accessible to them, and you don't really want to start in a league where you're worried about being not as good as the other players. So we decided to start something where it's kind of like drop-in sessions where Muslim girls or women can come, and we teach them how to play, and we just have fun.
All right, there you go. How about you, Sister Asiyah? Do you have anything to add to that, like to that story or the whole
Yeah,
purpose?
we are always looking for masjids to host it. So we did do a few sessions. So COVID obviously put a nice stop to all of that. But originally we were working at a masjid in Markham. We were looking on the West End as well for different masjids that were involved. So again, like the interest is there. They just need a lot of girls are just looking for like a safe environment to try it out to see if they like it or not. Maybe they don't, but at least to try it out. So for us, we had each other when we started. So even though we weren't the best, we're all together doing it. So that allowed us to kind of keep pushing forward and keep playing at it. So like we want to provide that same kind of comfort and enjoyment for other Muslim girls who want to try it.
I see. And Masha, from what I gathered, you two are pretty competitive. You got that competitive fire in you, but maybe not everyone's cut from the same cloth. Now, how do you approach that? Do you kind of have sisters who are, is the intent to just to have fun and that's that, or is the goal to eventually build up that competitive spirit? So when you're like, okay, yeah, it's fun, drop-in sessions are great, or it's fun to just kind of hang out with my friends and just play pickup, but I really want to turn serious and go, like, is there a fine line there, or do you just kind of say, we're gonna enjoy for the love of the game?
Well, the goal is definitely to start a league. We know that in the West End they do have a lot of Muslim girls that play. We've met them like personally, but in the East End they don't have as much a league running. So we want to start something that maybe we can do like East End versus West End. We can start off with games like that, and then hopefully develop into a league.
Okay, how about you, Sister Asiyah? Do you have any?
Yeah. So at this point, the goal would be just to grow an interest in it. So I don't know if we have enough yet to start a league, but just to expose girls to it. So like just allowing them to try. So let them figure out whether or not they're into it. Like I said, there is so much talent in the Muslim community, the Muslim girl community as well. Like they are competitive, they are athletic, they just need to decide to try it out to see whether or not that if it's for them, if it's something that they would enjoy doing. And again, like while competition is really important, I also like growing up, we saw the benefits of sports beyond the physical playing of it. There are so many other things that you can learn from participating in it, like the team spirit, things like that, that help you grow as a person as well. And that's something that we also want to expose and allow Muslim girls to grow into.
All right, so let's unpack that a little bit more, because when it comes to sports, I mean, some people, they say, oh, it's the camaraderie, it's the discipline, it's the physical activity. What would you say are some of the benefits or the things that, for, let's just say, sisters who are watching this, they're probably like, yeah, you know what, it sounds great, but, my couch is, it sounds more appealing, in some ways, like, and this isn't just limited to sisters, brothers too, but in this case, because we're highlighting the sister side, let's just say sisters, like, it's not in them. They don't want to, you can't force anyone to play sports. But what have you found based on your experiences, and what are the benefits that it brought in your life in terms of really surrounding yourself and really digging deep into the whole sports world?
So one of the big things is like confidence. So when you're playing a sport, and like I said at the beginning, we were not the best at it. But like when you're working on it and you see like you see yourself getting better at something, it builds like a strong level of confidence in you. And then, so that's one of the things. The other thing that I think is really beneficial is the team aspect of it. So basically, like on a team, you're not everybody has strengths, everybody has weaknesses. So when you're playing a game like hockey, you're like learning that about yourself. So things that can make you better, how you can what you can do to make the team better, or things like that. And I feel like there's sisterhood as well. So me and my sisters, like when we were little, we used to play. As we got older and we were playing competitively, we didn't. It was one of the things that no matter what we were doing in our lives, we were all busy, we're all working, we're all in school. We would come together on the nights that we had hockey and we'd play, and it was one of the things that kind of bonded us together. So that's again like some of the benefits that I got from it that I really enjoyed. And again, I would think like other girls could really benefit as well.
I see. How about you, Sister Husna? What were some of the takeaways that you got from really diving into this world?
Well, pretty much the same thing that Asiyah just said. Team building, communication skills, it helps with. In terms of like when you're playing, you have to communicate with each other. It's really important when you're playing hockey in team sports. And yeah, building confidence is definitely a big thing as well.
I see. MashaAllah. Any trash talking? MashaAllah, when it comes to the, blood boils and, you get into it and as they say, it's easier said than done, but, as they say, a moment of patience during a moment of anger can save you a lifetime of regret. So have you found yourselves saying something that just you wish you could just get a time machine, turn back and just be like, I wish those words didn't escape my mouth? Like, is there anything like that in this context?
Well, we're sisters and we're all on the same team, so it's become a thing where our teammates know like we will go at it on the bench. So I'm a bit more passive than my other sisters when we play. So sometimes we're like yelling our heads off right at each other, and there's been a few times where our other teammates, like you can tell they're getting uncomfortable, so they'll have to be like, "Can you guys chill, please?"
Oh, you have to dial it back. How about you, Sister Husna?
Yeah, so amongst us sisters, we do argue a lot, naturally. But even towards other, like there is some trash talk towards other teams as well. I don't think that there's anything that I regret saying. But yeah, no, amongst sisters, we can definitely use more patience.
Okay. All right. There you go. Now, let's turn to a new kind of a direction here. Now, when we touched on this a little bit, let's unpack this a bit more. We're talking about the sisters and maybe any potential barriers. Now, specifically, let's talk about the hijab in particular. Now, mashallah, maybe for the sisters who are wearing it, they might look at it as some sort of hindrance. They may look at it as some sort of, oh my gosh, because I'm wearing this, how could I be an Olympic or Olympian, or how could I, go toe to toe with some of the others? What do you have to say about that in this case? Is it a barrier? Is it something that sisters should be concerned about? Is it something that is a roadblock for success in the sports world? What's your take on that? In case if there are sisters wondering about how they can look at their hijab and whether or not if it's fitting in the sports world.
Well, I think in our experience, it just matters how accommodating that space is. So for us, we wear, like all the other players in our ball hockey league, wear shorts, and they allow us to we can wear pants or like dresses underneath. It just depends on the comfortability level of the player. In other sports, I know that there's a lot of regulations that that might stop it, but I think that in our experience with accommodations, like anything, anything works.
I see. How about your sister, Asya? Any things to say? Let's just say a sister is watching this and she's wearing it, and maybe she's thinking that there's no hope. I mean, I could only if I have other sisters and I could just freely,
Yeah.
play. Is there? What do you?
So it reminds me, I do remember a story where we were playing we were playing at a rink in Mississauga one time, and there was a group of people that were there for a different event. And there was a Muslim lady there, and she came up to us and she was like shocked that we were playing. She's like, "But how?" She's like, "But they're wearing, but like, how do you like, why can't you, like, how are you wearing long pants, or how can you wear the hijab under and play?" So like for us, it's kind of more like we will, like, if we're not able to wear the hijab or wear the proper Islamic clothing that we want to, we wouldn't play. So for us, it's a priority in terms of what we want to do. And then we also live in a country like Canada where the values are set up to be, like, the main value is to be that you're allowed to, you have freedom of religion, you have freedom of expression. So as far as it mentally goes, although you might not see it, so it's not a visible thing, it's not something that you see, we do have the right to do so. And in that case, why not? Like, it's a matter of your own comfortability, right? So like we've never had a problem playing with our hijab. If we were told that we couldn't play, we would either have to fight it, or we wouldn't play at all. So those basically are our options. So for us, it is a priority, and we wouldn't. And for Muslim girls that basically are interested in playing, again, if you're a Muslim girl, you're interested in playing sports, and you feel like the hijab is not something that you would be able to do so, it's like, you shouldn't think of it as that. You shouldn't think of it as a barrier to allow you to participate in it.
Okay, mashallah. So it's nice to see that, that it's what you make of it, and it's all about, I guess, the approach in it. Now, having maybe just a little bit to kind of unpack that part a bit more in terms of rules and regulations of the sport versus freedom of expression. Now, treading on a careful territory here. I mean, on the one side, you may have folks that say, yes, you have absolute freedom of expression. This is what this country is built on, mashallah, and you go, you can shout to the moon and back and say, say that, this is our God-given right to express ourselves the way we do. On the other side, though, there may be some people that say, hey, man, like, rules are, there are limits, rules and regulations. We can't bend the rules of the sport to accommodate everybody all the time. Is there a fine line? Is there a balance there? Like you mentioned, you have to, if let's just say a sport completely reserves its right to have these rules and regulations, maybe headgear is a safety hazard, but then you have a sister who is just, insisting on saying that, you can't, this is, you see where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, in that case, how do you mitigate that? How do you navigate through that kind of situation where on the one side you got, the regulation, on the other side you're trying to balance your own kind of personal freedom of expression?
Well, rules change all the time. There was actually, I think it was 2 years ago, where there's a boxer, I don't recall her name, she wore hijab, and before 2 years ago, she wasn't allowed to play, but because she pushed for it, and there's no real safety risk to wearing hijab, she was able to have those rules changed. So.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so that's a story in of itself. How about you, Sister Asiyah? Do you have any thoughts?
So in terms of the way the hijab is too, there's a lot of companies that are now coming out with different types, styles of hijab. So I think Nike, so Nike has their hijab style. So there are ways around it. So even if a safety issue is brought up, there's ways of addressing those concerns that allow you to basically get over those barriers that are standing there. So like I said, so there's hijabs that don't have pins, that come off, that will, once pulled really hard, will come off. So those are things that are definitely solutions to those issues brought up.
Huh, interesting. Wow, I guess for some, like, oh, okay, I guess they don't think of like abayas and they're gonna just go to the sport in their full gear. But mashallah, so there you go. So that's there. The more you know, right? So there are options out there. You mentioned Nike as one. So there you go, mashallah. So that's, I guess you just have to open, explore, and see whether if it's worth it. Sometimes I find maybe too much time and energy is spent on something that could be used elsewhere. Some people, when they're just constantly, and it's good, like mashallah, you have leaps and strides. That boxer story, that's a success story in and of itself, mashallah. So hey, why is maybe this person could be Do you have the name by any chance, just so that way, for those who are interested to search it up, the story, and figure out what?
I can get the name.
Uh, well, maybe no worries, no worries. But like, yeah. You said 2018 was it, or 20?
I think it was 2017. But she's a German boxer, and it's on like for international boxing tournaments, I believe.
Okay, interesting.
It was
International boxing.
changed to accommodate her. Yeah.
Interesting, mashallah. Well, this is what this is. I guess this isn't something new. People, they constantly, as you just keep struggling, keep striving, keep pushing, and then eventually you'll success manifests itself in so many ways, mashallah. So there you go. That's a success story right there. Now, in addition to all of this, I'm curious, are there any resources? Like, we talked about the pitfalls, we talked about the barriers. Let's look on the flip side here. Let's talk about people who are looking for resources that are available. I know, mashallah, you two have started up your own group. Is it a nonprofit? I just want to be clear. Is it a nonprofit? Is it established, or is it just kind of
starting off, it's a nonprofit.
Okay, starting off as a nonprofit. So are there any other resources available that you could point to and say, this is a great starting point for people who really want to get into sports? I mean, maybe there are actual clubs, maybe there are YouTube channels, or maybe there are articles. Are there anything like that? Like any kind of resources that you could point towards and say, this really helped me out in my whole sports journey?
Yeah, well, depending on the sport, the Hijabi Ballers is a really good organization that we've collaborated with sometimes. They basically provide spaces for a lot of different sports, and they have a lot of connections as well. So if you're into a sport, they can direct you to someone else that can help you in that sport and mentor you essentially.
Okay, interesting. Hijabi Ballers. Okay, that's how about you, Sister Asiyah? Do you have any other resources that you could point towards?
No, Hijabi Ballers is the one that comes to mind as far as in the the Toronto, Mississauga area. They're a really good resource, and they host events and things like that all the time, which are really so. If you're a Muslim girl and you're interested in trying it out, like, I definitely would follow Hijabi Ballers. They have Instagram, Facebook. I think they have Twitter as well.
Yeah, and they've collaborated with Nike too.
Yeah.
Oh, no way. Yeah. Okay. All right. So this isn't small time. MashaAllah. That's it. So, but what about for those who are, let's just say, how do I say, they don't want to get their feet wet, like in the actual sport. They want to get to know a bit more. Like, I'm sure, with the internet now, that just kind of opened the floodgates in terms of, you have leading experts. I'll give you an example. In the basketball world, you have coaches, you have people who teach you how to dribble, you have people that teach you how to shoot, you have people who offer these drills and techniques. Are there anything like that, like any resources, that any YouTube channels or anything like that people, if they just want to get a taste of it without actually, maybe they're not ready to actually start, getting into sports, like just to kind of have an appetite for it? Are there any YouTube like, do you follow YouTube channels or anything like that to kind of improve your hockey game, or is it all innate, or like what's your strategy?
Us, well, no, I don't personally follow any. I don't think Asiyah does either. But we do have like mentors that have helped us, but they're not like Muslim. So because we play in just a league for everyone. So we've had mentors that have helped us get better at our game. But in terms of online resources, I'm sure you can find some, but I'm not sure whether it would be Muslim women run.
Okay, how about you, Sister Asiyah? Do you have anything that you could point to, or?
Nothing in particular. But again, like, hockey is a sport, so like, you'll benefit. Like, there's so many videos, tutorials, things like that online. So as far as, like, if you're just trying to get an idea of whether or not you like it, or some ways of getting better, like, there's so many, like, whether it's male, female, it doesn't really matter. There's so many tutorials available, definitely online.
Okay, now I'm curious, for those who really want to get into hockey, and you mentioned, Sister Husnah, that you've training under a mentor. Has there been one piece of advice that really stuck to you that really improved the way that you played? Not to give your secret sauce, but I'm curious if there's something that really, for those who, it's almost, as they say, for example, I'm trying to think, is it, was it in golf or something else where it's all in the wrist, right? Like it's all that, something like that. Is there any kind of evergreen advice in terms of hockey that you've found and you're like, this really helped me out? Because sometimes some people, they have like, maybe some people might have like a confidence issue that's actually psychological, deep rooted, that's actually affecting their performance. Some people actually have a strategy issue, maybe the way they hold the stick, and maybe the way they flick the puck, or all of that just really. Well, this is ball hockey in particular, so a ball or what have you. Um, is there anything like that that comes to mind that really you look back and you're like, wow, this one piece of advice, man, really helped me out? Out of all the kind of like,
Not really. Nothing that has stood out. I'm trying to think right now.
no worries. Well, I'm just thinking as well. Like, was there a moment? I'm curious because everybody has their own kind of success stories, or they have their own kind of they're trying to overcome certain things. Maybe some, like, did hockey come easily to you both, or was it something you had to? I know you mentioned in the beginning that you got better eventually, but did you have a knack for it, or was it, wow, like I was like, you know in the minus when I first started? Um, what would you?
We were so we had only played on the streets when we first started in a league setting. The running was really something because you're not like when you're playing on your driveway or on the road, you're not running as much. But when you're in an actual rink, that really gets to you. Like you realize like how much running is involved. So getting used to that definitely took time. Like so in our first season, we used to lose games probably like 10-0, 12-1 maybe. Like we would get totally destroyed in the first season. And then just because we enjoyed it so much, like we enjoyed playing so much, we kept at it. And then by season, I think in our third season, we actually won that year, which was crazy as far as the turnaround goes. But for me, like the main thing that really helped me is my siblings tell me I have tunnel vision when I play hockey. So all I see is like me and then the net. So what that being aware of that and having to think about that before every time I take a shot is the biggest advice that I would give anybody.
Interesting. How about you, Sister Husna? Anything on your end?
In terms of advice, not really.
Like, I mean, like, no, not maybe not in terms of advice. Like, was it something that you just picked up really quickly, or did you find like, oh, I was really struggling on, like, Marshall, the stamina portion probably people don't take into account.
Also,
Um,
we were playing with outboards, so you have to learn how to play with the boards, and the boards in ball hockey and ice hockey too as well is a huge like asset. So you have to learn how to play and use the boards to maybe ring the ball around or ring the puck around. And yeah, stamina definitely. Even just passing, making proper plays, playing with offside. Like there's a lot of adjusting to do. That's why we took a couple of seasons to adjust, and then once we got into it, we definitely improved.
well, mashallah, there you go. That's what sports is all about. Just feedback, and you keep improving, and at the end of the day, you just keep getting better. Like, I think progress is a big key. I know you mentioned, I think, was it Sister Asiyah, was like where you, if you start to notice little differences, let's just say you don't get as tired. Okay, that excites you a little bit more. These little wins, I
Yeah.
suppose, really gets you going. And then maybe you weren't strong enough to, let's say, you know, um, shoot from far, and then after that, all of a sudden, hey, you can do it from halfway, or like, these little wins, I think, really add up. So, mashallah, that's great. Like now, as I always say, it's it's bittersweet, but at the end of the day, like all good things must come to an end. So, mashallah, Sister Husna, Sister Asa, you two have been phenomenal. You two have been amazing. You two have been like really showing a lot of the great things that the whole sports world has to offer, especially for our sisters. You two are like shining examples. You mentioned before that there's no real someone that you could point to other than the Olympian. But hey, this is your chance, mashallah. This is your chance to go through it. But I would be remiss if I didn't give an opportunity to you both. If you have any final thoughts, let's just say there's a sister who's watching this and she's unsure about this whole sports thing. Something that I don't know, especially with COVID-19, with this whole pandemic. I mean, sports seems to be out of the question. What advice, what parting words of advice would you give in terms of dealing with this whole COVID-19 pandemic? And for those who really want to get into the sports world, at least at this time, what would you say? What would be helpful? What would be your words to that sister? You know, either one of you can. I'll leave it to one of you to take the first shot here.
I think we've all put on some weight during COVID-19, so it's a good way to combat that.
Okay, mashallah, there you go. Hey, that's one thing. Sister Asiyah, what would you say?
I'd say like yeah, it's a really hard time for sport fans who want to play sports. We haven't actually gotten to play in competitively in almost a year now, and it's really hard, honestly, to just go out, like. But the best thing to do is just to grab whatever you have, grab a ball, grab your hockey stick, just go outside, throw it around, gather your siblings. You have as many as we did. That was a benefit. And just like try it, just have fun. That's the main thing.
Okay, mashallah. Hey, if you have 9 siblings, then it's a no-brainer, right? Mashallah. But I guess the idea is like to work with what you have and don't let anything stop you with this whole COVID, mashallah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us, all, continue in a safe manner, and that, we reopen this whole, this whole province, the whole country, the whole world in a safe manner, and that you can enjoy what you love most, and that you can compete and just keep going, keep growing, and keep progressing, mashallah. So thank you, Sister Husnah, and thank you, Sister Asiyah, for your time. Really, really appreciate all of your insights in the whole sports world for sisters. Now, I want to talk to the audience for a quick second here. And mashallah, with this whole world, this whole topic of sisters in sports, it's something that it needs to be said. Mashallah, with this whole COVID-19 pandemic, options are limited. Yeah, it's true. And maybe even we're in 2021, even we're in the 21st century, options may be still limited for our sisters. But if we look and explore and try to create opportunities, just like our sisters did right here, they saw a need, and people, let's just say, they wanted to play hockey. They looked around, they looked left, they looked right, and nobody was doing it. So they started something up. And mashallah, you're going to attract folks. So the idea is, as they say, good things come to those who sweat. And so if you can just take this opportunity, if I can take this opportunity to really remember how important physical activity is, not only for your mental health, for your physical health, to take care of your body, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this one chance to really make the most of it. I think inshallah we're going to be in good shape. And so with that, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. This is your brother, Mohammed Maxwel Hassan, for Canada Today Youth Edition. Stay strong, stay safe, and stay proud to be Muslims. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.